Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tech Talks with IEEE Canada, a platform where we bring together inspiring leaders shaping the future of engineering, technology, and innovation. Before we begin, I would respectfully acknowledge that I am joining you from Toronto, Ontario, which is situated on traditional territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Mississaugas of Credit, Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. We are grateful for the opportunity to learn, collaborate, and grow in these lands. Today's episode is centered on an important and timely theme: engineering equity, building inclusive pathway for future innovations. This will be a conversation that touches every one of us. Gender equity is not just about representation, it's about creating environments where every individual has opportunity to contribute, grow, and thrive. Today, we are honored to welcome a distinguished leader whose career spans over 3 decades in telecommunication, innovation, and technology strategy. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ibrahim, Executive Director of Guardian Safety Net, former CTO at TELUS, and Fellow of both IEEE and Canadian Academy of Engineering. Welcome, Ibrahim. It's pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Inderpreet. I appreciate the opportunity. As you said, it's such an important topic. I think people sometimes uh, they think diversity is something they need to comply with. And to be completely honest, it's a selfish desire because diversity equals innovation. So when people talk about diversity and equity, it's in their best interest to do it. It's not just to comply with what they think is the political scene. Like after so many years, people have proven that innovative thinking, innovative ideas comes from the diversity of thought, of culture, of existence. So thank you. It's a great and timely topic, right? So I tell everybody, diversity is so critical for you to stay relevant and innovative in our industry.
Yes, perfectly. Ibrahim, to start with, could you please briefly share your professional journey? What inspired you to pursue a career in engineering and technology?
I come from a third world country, from Lebanon, very proud of my roots. But if you're a good student, you're either doing a doctor or an engineer. So
Perfectly.
there was a lot of choice, not a lot of choice. And I was not the top student of my class, but I was good. Like I got a 90 average. And I asked both doctors and engineers, friends of the family, I said, which is better? Well, they said you got to study for, because we have the American system. You study for 4 years, you get a degree, and then you apply for pre-med and another 3 years. And that it took too long for me, even though I ended up doing graduate work in engineering. And it felt, it was more innovative to live in a place where you empower others versus where you depend on yourself. As a surgeon or as a physician, you depend on how good you are versus the team. So I've always liked team sports, and I chose engineering. So that's how I started. And then I did my graduate. Everybody says, oh, you only have a bachelor's, you need to do a master's degree. So I applied to the US, of course, which was and still is probably the best place to get a collection of universities.
Yes.
And my immigration to Canada happened. I have lots of cousins who were born here. And I said, you know what, like it's more important to be Canadian, and I can worry about my graduate work yet. And I did come here and did graduate research, and started in semiconductors and realized it was such a lonely place.
And this is again, it is still like the semiconductor, the chips are again on the boom. Yes.
It's interesting now they're back again, like they died for a bit. And then I went into software design, real-time software design. Before it was called cyber, it was called cryptography. And then I started working on, I realized I'd rather not build, even though I was okay at it. I'd like to see people using the products and helping them. So I went into systems engineering at Nortel, and it looks like it was my calling. I went from Bell Northern Research, from R&D to engineering, and I was getting promoted all the time. So it was an amazing thing. And I was lucky. There was a whole, I think I shared with you privately,
Mhm.
when people talk about diversity and equity, like I was fortunate enough in my career to work with a bunch of teams where there was a lot of women. So
Mm.
you get that gender diversity piece. But I ended up going to data, had a bit of sales, was not my strength, and then went back to engineering and left Nortel in 2003, joined TELUS as CTO.
Mhm.
Great place, great technology, very innovative, huge on diversity and equity. And I retired a couple of years ago to run a non-for-profit to support first responders. I think it's not usually a choice, first choice for engineers to go work for the people who actually save our lives and keep our homes safe. So it's been a fun 2 years in my retirement.
Mm. Wow, that's a remarkable journey spanning innovation, leadership, and deep technical expertise. Thank you for sharing that foundation with us. Building on that, I would like to explore what shaped your perspective beyond technology, like throughout your leadership career. What experiences have most influenced your perspective on diversity and inclusion?
I think we're all uh, we're all products of our home and our surroundings and our culture. And I was the only boy with three women and four aunts, one uncle. So it was always the male species might have been the supposed leader, but we were always the weak species. We knew it. There was always more women. They were just as smart, if not smarter than we are. So
Mhm.
I grew up in a place where I actually had to fight for my rights. So it was
Mhm.
okay. I'm familiar with women being equal, if not better than men. So interpret that actually shaped. I had no issue with women being in any position.
Wow, that's
And
very, yeah, that's very insightful perspective, especially how leadership experience shape inclusive thinking. Thank you. This naturally lead to us to the broader question of why inclusion matters in engineering today. So, why is gender equity important for future of engineering and technology? What is your perspective? Yeah.
so I'm going to say two things. I had a chance to work. I'm familiar that diversity and inclusion is critical, period, in
Mm-hmm.
anything you do. And I actually experienced it when I worked at Bell Northern Research in the cryptographic systems, or what became the precursor to a lot of secure communications, and the company called Entrust out of Nortel. We actually were almost 50% men, 50% women, and the dynamic was unbelievable. Because each race thinks differently, each gender thinks differently.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as we have an open mind, we are so much richer, and I love that. It never happened for a very long time. So when I became a leader, I started looking. So I joined WISE. When I joined WISE in 1996,
Mm-hmm.
women were shocked. It was just starting. And I said, but like, you need more men to believe in this mission.
Mm-hmm.
Because if all the women agreed that we need women in science and engineering, that's only 50% of the population. But we need to move. And I was lucky with a wonderful engineer called Anne Raymond that I worked with, and she supported it. And we tried to do all the supported studies and sponsorship. And Interpret, you have to. So, two things. One, do we believe diversity and inclusion is critical for innovation? It's critical to keep the intellectual juices flowing and getting everybody excited. Forget about women and gender for now. So, if we agree with that one, then it's up to us as leaders. And I encourage all the other leaders to say, okay, what do I bring to that mix in my organization or in my industry? And for us, people, like, I don't have a racial diversity problem, right? Like, you go to our coffee stations or cafeterias, and
Mm-hmm.
it's every nation under God's sun, because engineering is so global. uh,
True.
and the part that's missed for me is gender. So I can sit down and use the United Nations or do the political thing. Oh, I need in Canada more Indigenous people. It's true. I need more Black people. It's true. But the bigger issue we face as leaders is there's less women in our industry than is being graduated. So we need to do something about it. And that's what sparked my journey as a leader. And I have to be honest, our CEO, I'm sure the mechanisms were in place, but it's not because of something that came out of HR or people in culture. Our CEO would tell us when I was there, believed in cultural diversity, in diversity, period. And we actually had awards for how you move women in the business. And we applied it in engineering. We had a metric through mentorship, through a couple of things. Like one thing I noticed, sorry, I'm sidetracking, but it's so important to mention this because traditionally the women takes the parental leave. So somebody says, oh my God, let's say I lost Interpret. Oh my God, I lost her for 2 years. It's so true. But if you lost George for 2 years or Ranjit or Qingtao, or it doesn't matter, they'd also be not relevant. So don't equate somebody being away for 2 years with their gender, because their gender is irrelevant. Anybody who leaves for 2 years and dedicates their time to their children and their family will not stay up. So, oh my God, she's away for 2 years. Oh, it doesn't matter. She happens to be a she. But it applies to men and women. So if the husband or the partner, the male spouse, takes a year off or 2 years off, I bet you he will be just as irrelevant as the she that took the time off. But people who are, you know what? One thing I learned, you cannot change people who have biases and prejudice. Those people, God bless them. I wish no ill on anybody, but I'm not going to bother changing their mind. They're stupid. They're dumb. They're not doing their own teams a favor by working towards diversity and inclusion. And no, I'm not saying hire somebody because of their gender or their race. Those qualified people in that gender, qualified people in that race. You should meet my sisters. All three of them are smarter than me. So this is bullshit that it doesn't help. But we found out, okay, so if somebody leaves for 2 years, how do I make sure they're part of the team? So we started putting plans to make sure, okay, well, so-and-so took parental leave, in particular females. Oh, well, let's tell you what happened on the team. Let's try to meet for coffee. Bring the baby. And it's amazing how a lot of them actually wanted to come to work faster anymore.
Yeah, seriously. Wow.
And so it's such a simple thing, and it's not my idea. It's a bunch of the females in my group. Says, Ibrahim, well, have you asked Angela how she's doing? I said, oh shit, I got so busy, I forgot. So I emailed Angela, how are you? I'm in Vancouver, let's have breakfast. And if you make these people, you communicate with them, it's just human nature. They're part of the team, they're still relevant. Yes, they made a decision to have a family, and it takes first. But I wanted to fix the relevance problem. Do you lose them for 2 years? Of course you do. But it's part of life, right? It's not a big deal, right? It's part of the whole cycle, and we have to accept it, and we do accept it. But that piece where you don't feel like they've gone away for 2 years, like it's not a vacation or it's a wall. So that's one thing we fixed. The other one is mentorship, because and I have to be honest, with the Me Too movement, a lot of males were scared to touch females, not touch them physically, but to get involved because of the phobia and I have to admit, the men that have daughters, oh my God, they were amazing. They couldn't give a shit. They realize how important it is to provide that mentorship. And we think of a mentor, oh, Interpret, would you be my mentor, please? I think we all need 2 mentors, if not 3. We need a personal mentor that can help us navigate through the politics of a company and an organization. We need a technical mentor that we look up to. It doesn't matter who they are, male, female, on both fronts. And third, we actually need a mentor who can be very empathetic to our situation. So if you have those 3, it's brilliant. And when we're trying to encourage more women to stick the path, take leadership positions, so they themselves can become role models and mentors, It's just as good to grab a mentor in athletes, right? So when you look at these three mentors, I don't need to have the president of HP, who
Mhm.
happens to be an engineer, to be the mentor because she's not scalable. You see what I'm saying? So is
Mhm.
that me or you? Oops, sorry. Sorry about that.
Mhm. It's okay.
But I think that's why it's so important to look at all these three kinds of mentors. Like one of the most amazing stories in Canada, and it's unfortunate how politics get in the way, was when our governor general was an engineer and an astronaut. Like, look at diversity of gender, diversity of actually specialization. She was a colleague at Bell Northern Research, and at that time, to get there, she's had graduate studies. She's actually a good geek, quote unquote, and she decided her dream is space. So she went and stopped that career on hold and applied to become an astronaut. And then they gave her, listen, like, you're such a great Canadian. Why don't you become the governor general? And stuff happened. But that's such a great path. Like that's something we can all learn from, right? So I think interpret two things. We need to apply what it means to us, and
Mhm.
then have a bit of empathy as we start looking at diversity, and in particular in engineering, it's gender. Like the number one aspect of diversity is gender. Like I tell people, when people used to work from the office and bring their food, like I feel I'm in a bazaar. Like there's the Indian food and the Chinese food and the Korean food and the Arabic food, and there's an engineer from Nigeria, some like all kinds of food, everything but white food, like Canadian food, right? But it'll be nice to work the gender diversity. It'll be nice to get the gender diversity coming in because
Mhm.
we need it, not that we must have it, because it makes us better. And I think that is very critical. The
Mhm.
right culture is just as important as taking the right actions.
That's awesome. A powerful framing of equity as a forward looking necessity. And you have just mentioned like it is need or must, like we should take care of that. Thank you, Ibrahim, for highlighting that. Taking that further, inclusion is often discussed in different ways. Like, let's explore that. Some people see, like you have already discussed, few points on it. Some people see gender equity as a social issue, while other view it as business and innovative or innovation permissive. How do you see it?
I think it's all of them. Like to be completely honest, if 50% of the population is women, for example,
Mm-hmm.
let me ask you a question. Why do we not have 50% of the people graduating from engineering schools as women?
Maybe not getting the opportunity, right?
Thank you. So I think I'm not saying being an engineer is good or bad. It's irrelevant. I'm not debating it. But
Mm-hmm.
if I say that every field that is not 100% physically dependent, because there's a physical difference between men and women in general,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like me, I'm not that, but like working out and all that kind of stuff. Uh, but if you look at all the mental jobs or the jobs that do not require size and all the other things,
Mm-hmm.
half are women, they should be half, all of them. It's just starting academically. We're all scientists, you and I, it doesn't matter what our gender is. We can
Mm-hmm.
look at the facts, they should be half and half. So when we want to fix a problem, if we believe that's the case, then we should sit down and say, okay, why only in Canada today 35% in the hardcore engineering areas are women? And that's a good number. They were at 22 when I was going through school. So what is it that's not happening? So we need to take it back to high school and school. And then you start looking in all girls schools,
Mm-hmm.
the same amount of women going into engineering is the percentage of men.
Mm-hmm.
So what is happening to us in co-ed schools where women all of a sudden think that they can't be in technical areas and they pick other stuff? So because as engineers, we look at root cause analysis, and I think we need to look at that. But to start, we need to say the schools are graduating 35% women.
Yes.
Is my hiring to start, at least to start the basics, is my hiring profile for all new engineers at least 35% women? I would love honest HR departments and companies to say, no, and I need to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, we need concrete first steps. And then, okay, I'm at it. My intake is equal to the population. If I'm not happy with it, let me fix the high school issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because hiring more women than there's available, you're just creating a stupid need. Then the next step of my intake equals the population. What am
Mm-hmm.
I doing, Interpret, to make sure that they have a path and it's not blocked because they do take a year off or 2 years off? What's my plan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, so,
Balance.
so, and I think people need to have that pragmatic, and they need the support of, I have to be blunt, like I'm not a TELUS anymore, and then my old boss is leaving TELUS, but you need the CEO to believe in it because there's so many reasons why not to do things. Like, we're human beings. Anytime I ask you to do something that's not in your routine, you're not happy. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Your routine works for you. So you need that support at the top to say, you know what? I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe in what you're trying to do. Like we supported STEM fests for high school at TELUS. We
Oh.
actually started looking at the data at high school level
Mm-hmm.
and university level and how we can help. We have the Chloe awards and programs to acknowledge and recognize people who work on women and diversity. And so I think it's great, and I've been fortunate. But I don't know how much of it if I didn't have such a wonderful role models who are women in my life. With my mother, with my sisters, with Barbara Callahan, one of my bosses, and I learned so much from her. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't always that my boss was a man. I've had a few female bosses that were simply amazing and wonderful people. So maybe that's what made me fight so hard for this,
Mm-hmm.
because I selfishly tasted how wonderful gender diversity could be to a team, to a product, to a culture.
Mm. So I think that's very balanced and practical viewpoint, especially connecting equity with innovation outcome. So let's go a bit deeper into the team dynamics. Despite this progress, women still remain underrepresented in engineering. What barriers still you think we need to be addressed?
I think uh, there's two things that need to be addressed, or maybe three, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think the first, it's a shame that when universities talk about diversity and equity, and I know you guys there's a lot of academics and IEEE as volunteers, and we thank them for that. They talk about diversity and equity within the organization, not within their student population. They talk about the veterans to have the same amount of employees at the University, let's say, of Alberta or the University of Toronto, or women and men. They work on that metrics, but they don't say on, oh my God, if my intake of women is not equal to 50%, what is the root cause?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to address it. That's the first one, because we don't treat diversity of clients as a mission. And we don't think of the students as clients, like they have no choice. Actually, we turn more people away than we accept, which is great for quality. But does anybody sat down saying, how come I
Mm-hmm.
only have 35% women or 20% women? Or what's my objective? Which dean of engineering and computer science in this country of ours or anywhere around the world says, my target is 50% women at entry?
Mm-hmm.
And let me go back, find out why the hell I don't have those applicants. So we let them abdicate and we blame industry. And when I was in industry, and I still am,
Mm-hmm.
I have a responsibility.
Mhm.
But you're also saying, why isn't 50% of the people you're hiring are not women when you're graduating 35% women? So you're giving me an extra task needlessly. So I think we need to move as a society. So the
Mhm.
people that generate the intellectual wealth, do they truly believe that diversity of gender and race is critical to innovation? I haven't seen many deans of engineering, and some of them are my friends, and they're great people. But I haven't seen them standing up like all their LinkedIn posts as I had dinner with someone, and it was so nice. We met our target and raised. They're all great people, and
Mhm.
like some of them are personal friends, and I love them. But I would like to see the engineering community not talk about diversity of their organization,
Mhm.
diversity of the mix, and what do we need to do to fix it.
Ah.
So that's one. You said, what can we do? So that's one. Like you're asking me to have a target of diversity, which I've accepted, gender
Mhm.
diversity.
Mhm.
In other areas, there's racial diversity. Like that's critical. Not in engineering, not in technology. So I've accepted my thing, but I'm a one chain in the bigger ecosystem. We need to make sure everybody accepts their role and responsibilities. That's the first one. You said, ask me to go a bit more deep. The second one is there's a physical reality of when you have kids, you need to be with a certain age and whatnot. So I think we need to work the role if we truly want to support women. We need to make sure them like so. I have two sisters. One was a dietitian and a fashion designer,
Mhm.
and then when she had her first child, she took 2 years off.
Mhm.
One was in sales and technology,
Mhm.
and 6 weeks later, she couldn't wait to get back to the office. So we have to look at the various models and accommodate them to
Mhm.
advantage the individual and advantage the company, because at the end of the day, the shareholders are paying for it. We cannot have one model fits all. So once we know that flexibility, we need to work on what does that look like. Like a small thing. Like I started inviting the women who leave to my group meetings. Still, oh, I know you're away for 2 years. You don't have to come. This is what's happening. Oh,
Mhm.
Enderpreet just really launched her new software. It's fantastic. Next time you come to the office, drop by Enderpreet. By the way, you also need a break. Like I have one child, and I was not the primary caregiver. But I tell you, after a day with Joseph when he was young, I'm ready to just give me work. So that's the second thing. We need to take that into consideration. And men and women are not equal. There's no better or worse. They're just not equal. Actually, two men are not equal. So why is this bullshit of so we need a that's why I said we need the systems that say, okay, well, you know what? Every person is kind of unique. When you take that 2 years off, what's the best way to bring you back in? Assuming I want you, right? There's lots of good, bad people.
Mhm.
There's good people, bad people, men, women, doesn't matter what the gender is.
Bil-
So assuming you're valuable and I want you back.
Mhm.
Like I have a brilliant engineer. She's on going for the second time to her maternity leave. I don't want to mention her name. She used to report to me and tell us, brilliant. I mean, we can't, like, I assume the people who are after me there can't wait to get her back. It doesn't matter. She can have another 10 kids if she wants. But you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like, it's that value, that ecosystem, the chain, being together. And that's why I think we're very blessed. As I said, it starts from the top to have people who said, yes, you know what? Come up with your own process. Like, don't expect HR to be fair.
Mhm.
HR is to support 60,000 people. They're not going to come with a policy, but HR, the good HR will give you enough flexibility to take care of that. So that's the second one, right?
Mhm.
And the third is I don't know whether it's like I studied in Lebanon for my first degree, and then all my other degrees are here in Canada. I don't know if it's a North American thing, but we all want the diet pill. Like, oh, well, let me choose something and I'll lose weight, or let me, you know what? I'll spend a week at this fat farm and then I'll be fine for the rest of my life. We like the easy solutions out, I find culturally. So,
Mhm.
so, so the third point, because you asked me to go a bit into what is, I don't think one mentor is going to solve everything,
Yes.
and you have nothing to lose. Like if you just want one person to solve all your problems, if that happens, then you are very fortunate.
Yeah.
but that's really the case. Like you need a role model that tells you, you know what, accept, because people says, oh, women hardships. No, there's friggin' hardships for everybody. Like we
Mm,
all have our version of hardships, right? So you need somebody to help you overcome your hardships, the tough challenges politically. And
true.
and, uh, and I tell people, oh well, so and so is like doing this because I'm a woman. No, so and so wants a top job. So do you. So it's like it doesn't. You happen to be a woman. So they
Mm,
forget that we're also a human, and I think that's very bad. We need to factor that in. So when somebody is going after a certain role, and they destroy everything in their way. And if it happens to be a woman, it's not because they were a woman, it's just they were in the way. So we need to also abstract sometimes so we can deal with the right problem, interpret, not rather than deal with the symptoms. So,
mm,
so, so that's where mentors come in handy. And I tell people some of my best mentors are not engineers.
uh, this is an important and honest reflection of structural challenges which are still present, especially the 3 points which you have discussed. Now, let's move into leadership responsibility in driving the change. So, we know that policy alone are not often enough. How can organization move beyond policies and build a truly inclusive culture and truly inclusive environment? So, like,
Like so I ask everybody, why do you believe in diversity and inclusion? Or do you believe it, or is it because you got to do it and then there's a metric that you
mm,
need to conform to and it impacts your personal bonus? Uh, I don't think anything can be done if people believe, oh, I got to comply to this certain policy. There's nothing that can be done. Like you cannot convince those people that they do it.
mm,
And that's why I said I'm not excusing them from being people who are not appreciative of diversity and inclusion, but I experience this and I know how valuable that is. So like I could be the biggest bigot in the world, but I selfishly know how important it is. So I think before we there's no formula how to fix it. I think if the leader does not believe in it and repeat, it's not going to happen.
mm,
It will be paid lip service. They'll HR will blame leaders, leaders will blame HR, and then everybody will fake it. Says we got to deal with diversity and inclusion. Or here's to talk about how the people suffered when they came to America. It's all true. I'm
mm,
not taking it away, but if you care about diversity and inclusion, or if you believe that's an issue, and then by the way, it has to apply to everything, to race, to gender. Like you cannot have part of your life or part of your beliefs
mhm,
that believe in something rather than be universal. So your acceptance of diversity has to, I believe, has to be universal. You can't just accept it in the workplace and not accept it in the gender. So uh, that's why I'm very honest. Like if it's just a mandate that I gotta comply to,
mhm,
I don't hold much hope. But for let's say the 20-30% that actually believe in it, and
mhm,
we're fortunate we have that high of a number sometimes, because you only need one to start, and then you get the other one, and then one gets another one. So it's a bit of a logarithmic, beautiful effort, or as we say in Canada, as you know, the hockey stick approach. Like it starts slow, but you need enough people, and they need the support mechanism to work together on it,
mm,
and uh, you need to take it and say, okay, I believe in it. This is what it does to my business, and this is what I can do about it, and this is what I need.
mhm,
And I was fortunate; I had a great HR support.
mhm,
Like the lady also retired; she's in Vancouver. She's a brilliant person, right? Like she came up with me, and so between Leslie and Purnima on communications and on we came up with metrics with what we need to do with the whole programs. Like everybody needs help, but you need to highlight it. You need to say it's important to me, and that's why I said if it's just policy, as we started our discussion, I don't. It's not like nothing's going to happen, or you end up hiring certain companies say, oh well, as long as I have people at the same level, they can take any job. Like it's bullshit. And then, oh well, I might as well have diversity and inclusion, so I'll get a woman. They actually they don't do gender diversity a favor when they have
Mm-hmm.
an incompetent person who happens to be a woman in that role and advertise, look at how diverse we are. Like all my sisters unanimously disagree. This harms more
Mm-hmm.
through diversity than helps it.
Uh, to be honest, that is very actionable perspective. Like culture really is built in daily behavior, not just documentation. You have very rightly said it should be universal accepted. Uh,
Yes.
let's talk about practical implementation. So, what practical initiatives can organization
I,
adopt
I,
that?
so I can't give you advice on that. I'll tell you what I did because we went and analyzed how do we make sure at least we have 35% women on the intake. And then how do I make sure my population overall is
Mhm.
35%? And then we had a team of people looking as how do I make sure 50% of like the same amount of women, and like we were trying to help universities troubleshoot it to make sure why isn't 50% of people applying to engineering women? So each different area works depending on the culture of the company, but I'll tell you what worked for us. Like, so we used to come up with every manager will say, okay, so and so is on parental leave. Are you in touch with them?
Mm.
And I remember there's a good colleague of mine who ran at the time when I was Telus' managed services data, Walter out of Toronto. He
Mhm.
says, I'm going to call her. I swear to God, I'm going to call her. And then the next day, Walter says, I had breakfast with her. So, but it's very important, right? Like it's joking. And was I going to fire someone because they didn't contact the person on parental leave? No, but they need to know it's important to me because you do what's important to your boss. So when certain parts of the world says diversity and equity, if the actual leader doesn't believe in it, it's lip service. Then it goes one level down, lip service. But if I ask the people every day, well, have you contacted the people on parental leave in your department?
Mhm.
They know it's important to me. And if I go to my boss and my boss says, well, Brahim, have you contacted the people, everybody, then I know it's important to him. So that's why or you get the what I call stupid implementation of diversity and equity, which pisses off people who believe in it. Oh,
Mhm.
Enderpreet now is the new deputy minister for this. You know why? Because she's a woman. They needed a woman for that role. Oh my God, you're forgetting this is a highly educated person. She knows her shit. She's got a PhD. You
Mhm.
just reduce it completely. When your boss is stupid, he hired you, it reflects badly on you. So I think we need to be also conscientious of what does us this favor. But so one practical implication, you need to show you care and
Mhm.
look at the small details. So you need to have these metrics. So one thing at TELUS is we actually had a metric for diversity and inclusion, but it was a metric based on data and what we need to be
Mhm.
versus 50%. I'm never going to meet it. Like, why lie? Like, and if I hired 50% women, I'm not sure I will have good quality women. And
Mhm.
then the business will suffer, right? So we gave real metrics. We actually debated them as a team, both men and women, and we came up with something. Yeah, we accept them. We take this challenge on. It
Mhm.
wasn't HR-led program. But whenever it's HR-led program, it's policy. It
Yes.
was engineers that says, oh my God, we are missing so much in not having a proper diversity and equity program. It
Mhm.
wasn't forced on me. I came up with like I as the total as the bigger group. So that's the first thing. That's why I'm saying entrepreneur. There's no little quick
Mhm.
easy lesson. If the people don't believe this makes them better and is the right thing morally to do, nothing's going to change. So that's the first one. But if you do come up with a metric that people believe they can rely on, it's
Mhm.
like certain companies says, oh, 50% of our leaders are women. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm telling you, based on people knowing what they do on the progression path at certain industries, if
Mhm.
50% of your leaders are women, then they're not that good. They don't have the experience. They don't. But how do I make sure I get there? Nobody's put such a plan. I just hire women. Like, you understand what I mean? So I think they do highly competent women like yourself and others that I know disfavor when this becomes because the pendulum will swing, like certain parts of the world, without naming them, say, we don't believe in diversity and equity because it's ruining the fabric. Well, you didn't implement it right in the first place. Which morons doesn't believe diversity and equity doesn't make us richer?
Mhm. Ibrahim, that are very concrete and impactful matrices. Thanks for sharing with us. And moving forward, you have already shared the importance of mentorship and career development. So, what advice would you give to young women entering engineering and technology today?
I think two things that I gave, like I published my book with the dean from the School of Business, Wilfred Laurier, Kyle
Mm-hmm.
Murray, on the impacts of AI on our society. So it wasn't an engineering book. It was more of I started seeing automation replace people, AI replace some decision making. Like you always need a human and
Mm-hmm.
certain things in the middle. But there's a reality that basic white collar jobs are more at risk than blue collar jobs in the short term. So I want to make sure that uh, dealing the issue is not just the gender issue to give advice to women; it's also for all new engineers. And the travesty is most companies let go the old engineers because they're expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and then the young engineers because we need to invest in them, so we save the money and we use. So we end up with a bunch of engineers in the middle, which
Mm-hmm.
is such a travesty because the old engineers know where everything is, and the young engineers actually have no preconceived notion of process, which is the beauty. If you want to apply AI right, you want to reimagine processes. So it's so short-sighted for young engineers in general, regardless of the gender, that people don't hire them because they assume they're stupid, needs training, versus, oh my God, they're so fresh and they can be innovative. That's why I believe in the young and the old. I think the people in the middle are screwed, but
Mm-hmm.
they're the logical survivors, which is good because they have kids and husbands and wives and mortgages. The youngs have nothing and the older are okay, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the biggest challenge for period technologists, for what I call white collar jobs that are starting, business analysts, young engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think two things are critical, and we're so lucky in Canada with things like the co-op program. How do I make my fourth year project more meaningful versus, oh, I did it and I got my degree. Um, and I think the key is to start studying multidisciplines, right? If I look at the University of Alberta, it's an amazing partnership and between the dean from the School of Business and the dean from the School of Engineering. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think more cross pollination is what's going to make them more hireable because they're actually able to use. Like I tell people, AI is here. There's 20 to 30% savings for all of our lives. Like we're way more efficient,
Mm-hmm.
and then but we haven't yet built anything. We're just more efficient. So I tell you, interpret. If you're doing your work with an 80% of the time you used to, if you have nothing to occupy you, what the hell are you going to do with the extra couple of hours a day?
Mm-hmm.
In every part of our life. So if these 2 hours mean nothing to me, I'm bored anyway, it's useless. So I think we have to face that. And the actually, this is where the diversity of thought as you apply AI
Mm-hmm.
gives women the upper edge on men. Now to zoom in on actual gender diversity, because the engineering profession has been built with men across all our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to sit down and reimagine the process, reimagine how you do things, who better to do it than women?
Mm-hmm.
So the 1800s were the European engineers. They ruled the world. And then after World War II, it was the North American engineers.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's the Indian and the Chinese engineers, right? So, but engineering predominantly is being shaped by men. So when you look at the world of AI that's asking you to have that AI EQ or the AI emotional intelligence, diversity and creativity is the key. And who better than women who are engineers to do that?
Mm-hmm. That's very, very encouraging, Ibrahim, and a very good practical advice for emerging professionals. So, moving forward, uh, looking ahead, what challenges would you like to see in engineering profession over next decade?
I, th- I think so. Two things. I would like engineers to do more cross engineering
Mm,
teaching, whether we need to add more year to the engineering degree or not. Like it'll be nice that you're an electronics engineer, computer engineer, to do a bit more about civil and mechanical, because that gets your brain thinking in multiple areas. So when we talk about leveraging tools and creativity and innovation, that diversity of engineering discipline is critical. And trying to rush so I can graduate and not have a job is stupid. So I think that's critical. Or we should have a master's that does that. But you're missing the point on not having chemical, mechanical, thermodynamics, civil engineering principles. It's like similar to the old days of the French system, right? Like the bachelor's degree in Europe used to be 6 years.
mm,
But that gives the person graduating, it actually, they become an applied scientist. Like our engineers here are scientists or researchers. What we need to do is we need to go back to, I am an engineer. I am the best problem solver in the world. That is job security. But that's not what we're teaching these days. We're just waiting to churn them out as fast as they can. So we need to go back and I remember when in the old days, it was always the School of Engineering and Applied Science. And I think we need to go back and reward the teachers and the institutions on how good of problem solvers these people are.
mm.
So that's one thing. The other one is I'd like if the schools will treat the students as clients with choice, they would look at diversity and inclusion in a different lens.
Ibrahim, that's a compelling vision of future of engineering, application, and inclusion. Thank you for sharing this. And this is next is a rapid fire round. So I will ask few first quick rapid fire round, short answers. So one leadership quality every engineer should develop.
Empathy.
Wow. One piece of advice for early career professionals.
When you're trying to communicate,
Mhm.
make sure your audience is the one you're communicating to, not yourself.
One word that defines inclusive leadership.
Innovative.
One sentence, what does real impact means to you?
When the process results in a desired cultural change.
And final message to our global audience.
I think the world is so small.
Mhm.
So go back and find out what diversity and inclusion means to you and take action because you will be the leaders of the future. So you start early, you actually learn more and you become better as you go along.
Ibrahim, those are powerful closing reflection. Thank you for sharing such distilled wisdom.
Thank you for having me. And I love where WISE has become now and always ready to support.
Thank you. Ibrahim, thank you for this deeply insight conversation on leadership, inclusion, and gender equity in engineering and technology. Your journey, your perspective beautifully connect innovation with responsibility and impact. And to our listeners around the world, thank you for joining us today on Tech Talks with IEEE Canada. We look forward to bringing you more conversation that inspire, empower, and drive meaningful change. Stay connected. See you in the next episode. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye. Ciao.